Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
Hey Peter, how's it going?
George.
Happy Wednesday.
Another week, yeah.
Another week.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Should we just get right into it?
Let's go right into it.
Reactions. This is Rod Cleef.
So this is a picture of my
Rod,
stepdad.
I like this
that
guy.
Was when the first DC-10
This guy
landed
talks
in
about a lot of
Denver.
the same
He
kinds of
worked
things
for
that
Continental
we talk
Airlines
about.
For 36
He's talking about his dad
He was
worked for the airlines for
definition of a
36
company
years.
man. In fact, you
He
could
was the
always
definition
tell
of a company man. Remember that
plane
phrase,
going by
company man?
Because
Yeah.
You don't hear that so
gold
much
tail.
anymore.
They used to call it the brass hat. He was a beautiful
Okay.
man that came into my life.
So, had a
much
good
too late,
father,
left
good
much
role
too
model.
early. He worked there 36
Good work
years.
ethic, got imparted on him. What's the point, Rod?
He got laid off.
What am I reacting
Thought he
to?
had job
Oh, daddy
security.
got laid off. Okay.
My friends,
Job
the only
security.
job
All right, we're talking
security
about job
you have
security?
is right here between your freaking ears.
All right,
Your
we get to the meat and
knowledge
potatoes
and
of
your
this.
ability to take massive freaking action.
There is no job security. He's saying the only job security, I'll repeat what he said for those that didn't catch it. The only job security that you'd have is right here in between your ears, is what he just did. And he did the gesture. What he's saying is there's no job security. You have to make your own. George, I say this about so many things. We say this about work-life balance. I want to hurl myself off of a roof when people tell me that they demand work-life balance. And probably I'll hurl myself off a roof if you tell me that you demand job security. There's no such thing with anything, with any job, any career, there's no such thing as job security. That's a phrase that came about in post-war euphoria America during the industrial age, when everyone was getting jobs in all these different industries and it was supposed to be a secure job that you'd have for a long time. That was the birth of the 30-year mortgage, was that you were able to know that you could pay off your mortgage in 30 years because you had job security. Look, in today's world, we all know this, there's no such thing as job security. Even if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you own your own business, there's no job security. If you're an entrepreneur, you eat what you kill, right? There's nobody that's paying you if you don't produce or perform. That doesn't happen. You have to make your own work-life balance. You have to make your own job security. No one's going to give it to you. You know what your job security is? Your performance. Be a great performer. Deliver great results. Don't be a pain in the ass. Do it with a smile. Show up early, stay late, add value, all that stuff. There's your job security. You do that, no one's going to want to get rid of you. In fact, they're going to want to keep you around and pay you more. But other than that, there's no job security. Government doesn't have job security. Teaching, administration, schools.
Everything shifts.
Everything shifts. Yeah. Supply and demand factors come into play with every industry, what the marketplace is doing, what going rates are for people. Look, we all know, George, I'm 53. When we get to my age in the work world, you know, I become not such a desirable commodity. I have to go make my own worth and value, right? Yeah. No one's going to hire me. If God forbid I had to go out and get a job tomorrow, I don't know that I could so easily. I don't know how employable I am. I think differently, I act differently. I've got ADD, I'm like bananas all over the place. I got the heebie-jeebies, I can't sit still. I'm bad taking direction and bad with authority, all that stuff. I couldn't get a job, I have no job security, so I make my own. And I implore everybody out there, go make your own. So if you work at a company or you're a W-2 employee yourself, the way you make your own is you add value and you perform, and you do it with a smile. No one wants to be around a grumpy person, and no one wants to be around a grumpy person that doesn't perform or pull their weight. So pull your weight, add value, perform, keep a smile on your face. There's your job security, I promise you.
All right, next reaction is from Michael Girdley. He's one of those guys from entrepreneurial Twitter. And he says, the rich people I know, actually worth tens of millions, rarely go around telling everyone about it. Most of them look like pretty normal schmucks. What do you think about that?
That's completely true. And I know a lot of wealthy people, no one goes around and flaunts, no one goes around and advertises. As a matter of fact, the people that I know that wear the brands and the Chanel and the Gucci and the drive the cars and all that stuff that are a little showy, they don't have shit. except the Chanel and the Gucci in the car. You want to talk about pure wealth, it's not caring that you're wealthy. Wealth isn't about having the money and telling others that you have it. Wealth is about the personal freedom that comes along with having the money. So you want to know who's showing off with wealth? Look who's the most free around you. They're wealthy.
I wrote this down on the way over. I was listening to a podcast and somebody said, no one thinks the guy with a fancy car is cool. They think if they had the fancy car, they would be cool.
Right.
And like that's kind
true.
of what it made me think
Yeah,
of.
they say, what a douche. Look at that douche in the car.
Yeah.
That should be me.
Right, if I had it, I would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so it's one of those things to remember. All right, cool. We'll head over to the table.
Thanks, George.
All right, welcome back to the table, Peter.
George, it's nice to be back to the table.
It's good to see you.
I feel like some of my background items are shifting and people might be getting a different perspective of me. So let's just talk about this.
Yeah.
We have Biggie records. We got Prince. We got Marvin Gaye.
Yeah.
The football helmets are gone.
That's true. Yeah. Which I think for some people, I know you like the Phillies helmet, the Eagles helmet. But, you know, sports, I feel like, is a polarizing thing. It's almost like politics. So you got to be careful.
We don't have to make it that way. We can make it fun. We can make it engaging.
Yeah.
And
I was listening to a podcast on the way over here. This wasn't one of our prepared topics, but I just wanted to run it by you that it probably comes as no surprise to you, but this was kind of mind-blowing to me. It was
what blows your mind, George?
Well, it was this guy, Morgan Housel, and he was talking about the psychology of money, and he said that Warren Buffett earned 99% of his wealth after 50. Like, that's crazy to me. But it makes sense when you actually start to think about it, of exponential growth and compounding and all that kind of stuff.
Why, though? I mean, the guy's, I don't know, 90 or something years old. Like, why is that so unimaginable to you?
I think 99% just sounds like a lot. Like, if you've been working your whole life, it seems wild that all of that wealth would have been accumulated after 50.
George, it doesn't happen overnight. Wealth, you can make money on a week-to-week basis. You can make money on a month-to-month basis, year-to-year, and occasionally have some wins that are like little singles and doubles. Yeah. But like wealth, the real deal, wealth, it takes a lifetime, man. Yeah. It doesn't happen in your 20s and in your 30s. It does if you're, a Zuckerberg with tech, or something in tech, a tech entrepreneur where you own the lion's share and just, someone buys you out or you go public. I mean, there's 9 or 10 people I can count them on with two hands.
Yeah, game-changing technology.
Yeah, but the Warren Buffetts, the real estate people, the rest of the entrepreneurs and business owners, it's a lifetime, man. It takes forever. This week, all right, my dear friend, I'm not going to say his name, but he's been my boy for 30 plus years, sold his business Monday. So he sold his business for $150 million. Wow. And he's been in the business, he's been building it and struggling and hitting the valleys and the peaks and plowing through the brick walls and getting bloodied up for 30 years.
Yeah.
For 30 years.
Yeah.
And he only sold it for $150 million. Yeah. Warren Buffett's worth like $150 billion or something. Yeah. I don't know what he's worth, but a lot. I was curious,
did your friend feel like $150 million after all of that? Even though $150 million is a lot of money, did it feel like not a lot of money for him?
Yeah. So we spoke about this.
Yeah.
So I asked him, tell me what it feels like, and I wrote down my answer on a piece of paper and I showed it to him after he told me his answer. So his answer was, it was underwhelming. Right. It was a little empty afterwards. It was like, okay, what am I going to do tomorrow?
It's your whole life.
And I said, here, this is what I wrote. I wrote exactly the same thing. Because I know it's not the pursuit of the money that we're after. It's the pursuit of the freedoms. It's the pursuit of the game. It's the deal. It's the wins. It's the success. I mean, the money is part of it, but we're not searching for the money. He certainly wasn't searching for the money. He got the money as a byproduct of 30 years of getting beaten up, the shit beaten out of him. And, this is what he has to show for it now. I was very proud of him and very happy for him and his family. It's a great thing. You have to wrap your head around the reality of what's considered a lot of money these days because,
totally.
$150 million is great.
Yeah.
$1.5 billion would be obviously a lot better.
Right, yeah.
But look, $150 million, what do you do tomorrow? And he's got to start a new chapter of his life now, but he does it with $150 million.
So it's great. But it takes a lifetime. It took him 30 plus years. And it wasn't easy. And there were struggles. And he had low points where he needed to figure out what he was going to do about capital and bringing in money to pay bills and hire people and keep the thing going, right? At those times, he figured it out. All the travel, all the time away from family, all the no's, all the acquisitions that worked and acquisitions that didn't work, and the people that came and went, and the executive teams that, you know, you mixed with some well and you didn't jive with others well, and it was stressful, and you had to figure out who was going to fill the shoes, and then generating revenue and sales and all of that, man. It's not easy. So Warren Buffett, like he's 90 whatever years old or 80 whatever years old, and you're like surprised?
Yeah.
Of course. You know, the second half, man. You do all the prep. You do all the gamesmanship. You do all the laying of the foundation in the first half, right? And then the second half is when you're swinging for the fences and you're trying to get it done, you know? But you need that foundation, and sometimes the foundation takes a lifetime in itself before the money comes. I find that so many people are surprised that wealth takes a lifetime.
Yeah.
So your reaction to the Warren Buffett thing doesn't surprise me. I've heard it before. And it's amazing to me that people think like, oh, wealth should just come in 5 or 10 years. Like, what's the big deal, Peter? Like, what?
Right. People focus so highly on the annual returns and don't realize that, true wealth is built over decades rather than years.
It's easy to make money.
Yeah.
You can make money with income. You can make money here and there doing different things. It's easy to make money. It's not easy to keep it, and it's not easy to build wealth and grow that money into wealth. Completely different skill set, completely different time frame, completely different mindset.
Yeah, one of those things that makes wealth so difficult to keep is taxes. We've talked about that before. Right now, taxes are crushing New York City homeowners.
Property taxes.
There's a bunch of things. This Bloomberg article just reported that there's arbitrary comps, misapplied arrears, all these kinds of things.
Well,
and
can we just talk about that for a second? Because there's two different things you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So New York's always been a high property tax state. I mean, all the Northeast states are Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey. These are all high tax states. Massachusetts, for sure. And New York City and New York State, being primarily a blue state, has a history of varying degrees of successful economic policy or unsuccessful economic policy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, taxes are high in New York.
Yeah.
But why are they high? You're now talking about like, oh, the people in the admin office just get it wrong, or the policy's messed up, or the assessments are wrong, or the billing was wrong. Like I heard you mention a few of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's going to be that stuff. That can happen anywhere. But look, the policy, your taxing policy, your revenue policy has to be effective and efficient and appropriate for the time, the marketplace that you're in, the state, your constituency, the incomes, the values, all of that stuff. So please, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's great though, because a bunch of those residents are now coming in and saying, can we change this tax code? We changed this 40-year tax code.
They don't like it.
Yeah. And so I was wondering, you began your career up in New York in many ways.
Began my career in Trenton, New Jersey.
That's true. You always correct me. I'm sorry. But you eventually went up to New York. And then when you started there, do you have any experience with that tax code? What's your experience?
I have a lot of experience with it. I deal with it still today.
And what would you say to these residents? Like, do you see a way out?
New York City tax code is very specific and very detailed. There's different classes of buildings. All the classes are taxed at different rates. Tax rates come out once a year, and tax rates are driven by city budgets. So if you're a property owner, not just in New York, but anywhere, you should be concerned about property values and tax rates and the city budgets, because those are the three things that when combined together in one recipe will determine what your property taxes are. And you got to keep an eye on it. You have to manage it. That's part of being an asset manager. And when you own stuff, I mean, look, if you own one house, you have to asset manage your house.
Right.
If you own a portfolio of real estate, you have to asset manage your portfolio. But you have to be aware of what values are doing, because the rate of tax gets applied to the value of the assessment, and that generates the dollars that you pay in property taxes. And the tax rate is driven by your city's town council and city council and the leaders, how good they are at managing money and creating a budget and sticking to it and not going over the budget and effectively managing the business of your town or city or state. I mean, you hear me say this all the time. When you're a politician and you're in charge of your city's or town's or state's budget, you're running a business. It's tantamount to running a business. So you have to be good at business. And so what we find is that most of the people in the states and towns across America are not really business people or financial people or people who are leaders and familiar with the leadership that's necessary to run an organization such as a city or a state. And conversely, what it is mostly a popularity contest where the winners are unskilled and don't have any background, history, expertise, or skills that correlate to running a state or city. So you have all these budgets that are screwed up, and you have all of these cities and towns that are screwed up with the revenue and the collection of taxes and the payment of taxes, and people hate it. And look, New York, New Jersey are super high tax states, and New York City, they got to get on the ball. My experience with it is in primarily owning apartment buildings and commercial income producing properties in New York, where the value of the assessment is based off of the revenue, like it is most everywhere. During the Bloomberg years, those 12 years is when I was primarily focused on investing in New York. I mean, it was a great time. He was great at managing money and great at managing a budget, creating a budget and sticking to it. Never saw anyone as good as Mike Bloomberg in New York City for that. During a pandemic, you had de Blasio in New York. I mean, he wasn't really great. People didn't love him. He got voted in a second term. It's amazing, but the alternative wasn't really presented. There was nothing else, and so as an incumbent, he sort of had the advantage and continued. But it was because of his incumbency. It wasn't because he was great at managing money or great at managing the budget. And hopefully, New York and all these other cities and states can get back on track. You have to have revenue and tax policy that matches the budget's needs, but also people have to be able to afford it. Sometimes people have to sell property to pay taxes. You don't want to be in that position. New York City does a fair job of it historically. Some people have done better than others. You just heard me mention a few names. I would love to see New York City get better at delivering budgets that make sense and creating budgets that make sense and then taxing accordingly so that those budgets could be funded. I don't think it's happened over the past 8 years very well.
All right, well, sticking with New York State had this program.
Why are you so excited about New York today?
I don't know. I miss New York. I don't go there as often as I used to. When I was living there, it was great. And so,
New York must be in the news a lot. Well, tell me, what do you have?
So New York State, they had this $100 million program to convert hotels to housing, and it drew one applicant.
One applicant?
Yeah.
What? Let's talk about the one applicant that thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, so there's several takeaways here, but we talk about housing shortage, failure of regulation, perfect being the enemy of possible. So we can start talking about those things.
Theoretical
first.
Being the enemy of probable.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so those are things that we've already talked about, and we can kind of layer that in with this topic. But I was also wondering, you're in value add. Have you ever converted a hotel or something like that into a multifamily?
A couple things. So yes, I am in value add, and yes, I have converted or repurposed or reinvented properties that weren't originally multifamily properties into multifamily properties for housing. So I've done that. I'm in the middle of doing that right now. You may recall that I'm involved with a group. We've purchased 3 shuttered shopping malls, and those are being rezoned and then repurposed into multifamily. So that's happening right now. New York State created this policy, this program. They got one applicant. It's sort of like when all of these states and towns create housing policy and they make their set-asides too high for affordable housing and no one builds. Everyone's ringing the bell. Yeah, we created policy. We have affordable housing ordinances that we passed. Aren't we great legislators? And then crickets. Nobody comes to the table. No one invests. No one takes risks in the town, makes investments, hires contractors, puts their money where their mouth is, and builds. Because the set-asides are too impractical and it doesn't work. The numbers don't work. So New York State came up with a $100 million policy. They got one applicant. Congratulations, Like, why don't you come up with policy that better suits the marketplace, that instead of it being theoretical is actual, and maybe listen to the potential applicants, maybe poll them and say, hey, what will it take for you to invest? That's what the problem is, George. These legislators never ask the people that take the risk, that build the infrastructure, that build the properties and make the investment. They're never asked, like, what do you need to do in order to move forward? The legislators just set the policy and think that flies are going to come like it's honey.
Yeah. No, totally.
That bees are going to come or fly. Who's attracted to honey, flies or bees?
I think they're
bees
both.
are attracted to honey. But I think they're both. Flies are attracted to shit.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's what they got in New York State. They got shit because they created a policy that wasn't really great from a practical perspective, but theoretically it was fabulous, right? This is what we're going to do. We're going to enact legislation and, but just like the set-asides that are too big at 20 and 25%, no one's going to build. You need to have the set-asides lower. You need to have the policy for converting properties to multifamily be more favorable and more incentivizing to developers.
Yeah.
100%, that's what it is.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, if I'm running a business, if I'm in charge of New York State or any state, and I want investment to occur, I have to stimulate it. I have to incentivize it. I have to motivate it. People aren't just going to come and do it because the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. They have to be incentivized economically to take risk and put capital out.
Have you ever seen a program like, not like this specifically, but just a program in general that you've been attracted to that you're like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I'm going to do something along those lines?
Well, we were talking about Denver in a recent podcast, you and I, and how Denver enacted legislation that created a 10 to 15% set aside for affordable housing. The developer is going to do that deal. Especially if it's closer to 10%, they're going to do a lot of it. But once you're up at 12%, 15% and more, you just can't do it. The margins aren't there. The cities and states don't have enough juice to add and density and height of the building or things to give you in order to motivate you to put capital at risk and make an investment. So the real number is like 8 to 10 or 11 or 12% at most, depending on market conditions. And so Denver did a good job of it. Look, California just upzoned the whole state. ADUs everywhere. Look, we've talked about the reasons they did that and how long it took them to finally come around and set policy correctly, because they weren't setting policy correctly at all for a billion years. But now they have. And I think we're going to start to see more reasonable housing policy be set. These towns that are enacting housing policy and patting themselves on the back, Asbury Park, and no one comes and builds, they're going to get bitch slapped a little bit.
Yeah, make sure they're actual victories, not just rhetorical victories. Yeah.
Thank you.
I saw this article. It's most searched jobs in 2021.
Most searched
jobs.
So what does that mean? Like people are at home on a couch and they're like, I need a job, and they...
Yeah, I would imagine. I would imagine it's not just on a couch.
These are jobs that people want to get into.
Totally.
Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that these are
Hit me with
jobs
it.
that people
What do we
are
got?
interested. So I wanted to get your take.
Okay.
So we have number one is real estate agent.
Well, during the hottest real estate market in the planet.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you'll make money at being a real estate agent if you're the top 10% in your market. Every market, I don't care where you are, has 10% of the agents selling 90% of the real estate and 90% of the agents selling 10% of the real estate. So if you're in the 10% that's selling the 90, you'll do well. Totally. Otherwise, you're just going to be playing badminton most days.
Yeah. Number two is flight attendant.
Wow. That really? Because all the that shocks me, because
Me too.
during the pandemic, we saw all the airlines had to cut flights, the staffing, they didn't have enough people. So people want to look, I applaud. I think the flight attendants should be paid a lot more. Yeah. I'll advocate for them right now because, I wouldn't do that job. And the reason I wouldn't do it, it just seems like a tough, challenging job to me. And I'm sure they don't get paid what they're worth. And so the airlines, unfortunately, aren't money-making industries and businesses. So it shocks me that people want to be an airline attendant. So what else?
I would agree. You got notary.
Oh, easy to do. You can be a mobile notary. You can be a notary at your current company or your future company. It's a great, simple, cheap, affordable add-on to add value to yourself. Everybody out there should go become a notary.
All right, got to do that.
Yep.
I'm going to do that today. Therapist.
A therapist.
Therapist.
Well, unfortunately, we live in a world where we need more mental health professionals, and so therapists, right? And it sucks that we need it, but a day doesn't go by where I don't hear these really crushing stories about people, some that I know, many that I don't, that are just having tough times with mental health issues, and it sucks, So
psychiatrists and physical therapists are also in there. Yeah,
oh,
so
they're on the
like
list as well. Psychiatrists,
so
physical therapists will set aside, even though it has therapist in the name, but psychiatrists. We need more great mental health professionals, and those people need to make a lot more money because it's a big problem in our country. I wish it wasn't, but it is. Yeah. What else?
We got pilot, another flight.
Pilot. That's a cool job. They should get paid more too. Our lives are in their hands. Like, how much should people get paid when they're responsible for the lives of a few hundred people on a jet?
Seriously.
Like, I think that's like a high-paying job to me.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
So I hope they get paid more.
Firefighter.
Oh, man. So firefighters and cops, they got to get paid more. These are jobs that none of us want to do, and we need these people. We need them. We need more of them. We need them to be well trained. We need the budgets to be appropriate, to give them the training and the tools that they need to deal with this crazy world. And we need these people, and God bless them. I wouldn't be a firefighter right now, and I wouldn't be a cop. I mean, these are horrible jobs that they carry risk of injury and death. And you know that I was a firefighter one time?
I did not know this.
I was a firefighter during college and during grad school down in Washington, D.C. at the Glen Echo Fire Company on Massachusetts Avenue in Bethesda, Maryland.
Wow.
And
was that something you were going to pursue like full time?
No.
Okay,
I did it out of respect for the guys that do it. I wanted to be supportive. I wanted to learn about it. I wanted to be helpful in my community.
Yeah.
So I became an EMT and a firefighter.
Yeah.
And
my dad did the same thing back in
really?
Yeah.
Look, it was very rewarding. A little messed up because, one day I was dispatched on a call, and I had to be on the nozzle off the fire truck. And it's scary.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
When you're the guy at the hose, at the nozzle, and you got to go into a burning building. So I realized then that perhaps I needed to find another way to give back to my community and be involved. So I spent more time and over-indexed more in the ambulance and being on the medic side of things than on the firefighter side of things, because I was scared.
Yeah. A very good friend
tough.
of mine's a firefighter out in Montana. When he was going through academy, he was on the hose, and he said it was the hardest thing he's ever felt physically.
George.
He thought he shit his pants, and he said to himself, I'll have to leave. Like I'll have to. It's so embarrassing. And he didn't shit his pants, but he said it was just so difficult.
George, these people run towards fire.
Yeah.
We're trained to run away from fire
Right.
as people in society.
Yeah.
Firefighters are trained to run towards the fire.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So definitely firefighters have to get paid more, and I'm glad that there's more people applying to be a firefighter. What else?
Yeah. So we got personal trainer, physical therapist.
Personal trainer?
Yeah, those are kind
Isn't
of the
that
same
something
family.
that you sort of do for yourself? Like you're a fit person and you know how to work out and you know how to communicate well, and so you go on to Craigslist or whatever the platform is for personal trainers, and people just hire you?
Yeah, I do feel like this is like an Instagram reaction because there's so many physical, trainers on Instagram. So people are just trying to do that,
I think there's a lot of trainers. Everybody in the world says they're a trainer, just like everybody in the world says that they're a real estate agent or that they're an entrepreneur or something. And that's cool if you are. When I hire trainers, I want the best. I want the best people that I can find. That is an industry where you don't have a lot of job security. You're only as good as your last training session and your ability to get new clients. And the other thing about being a personal trainer is that how you look has so much to do with it. So like if you're not in shape, or if you've got a body type that's not like traditionally in shape, hot and sexy or whatever, like people aren't going to want to take instruction from you.
Yeah, sometimes you can use those genetics to your advantage with it.
Yeah,
personal
that's a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm surprised to hear that was the most searched.
Yeah.
What else?
Last one, electrician.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Electricians and plumbers, they're going to be a shortage. That's where the money is. Go there. Please, everybody, if you want to learn a skill and trade for your life, go find vocational training and get certified and get skill sets in plumbing and carpentry and electricians. That's where the money is. There's nobody new entering those industries, and the availability of professionals in carpentry and plumbing and electric is so low that everyone is booked and busy. You can't find these people right now. And soon they're going to be able to charge whatever they want. So if you're not happy with the $300 an hour bill, wait until it's $1,500 an hour for a plumber to come fix your toilet, because that's going to happen in the not too distant future. So definitely, if you want to earn some money and get licensed and learn a skill set for the rest of your life and be in a great industry that's a growth industry, become skilled in the trades.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is electrician and real estate are good. Everything else is maybe.
Well, if you want to make money.
Right, totally.
If you want to make money.
Yeah.
If you want to have a career that inspires you and it's not just about making money, then by all means go be a personal trainer or a therapist. But at some point the personal trainers need therapy and the therapists need therapists, because God, can you imagine being a therapist and all you do all day long is listen to people tell you their problems?
I have a friend who's a therapist, and that is, yeah, it's exactly like
I would
that.
blow my head off.
So crazy. No,
Yeah. But if you want to make money on that list, real estate, but be in the top 10, or be an electrician. I think the best one is be an electrician.
Yeah.
on that list.
No, I agree.
I think you're looking at $300,000-400,000 a year right now.
Yep.
If you can really dedicate yourself and become a great electrician, $300,000-400,000 a year.
Yeah. A friend of mine from the neighborhood is an electrician right now, doing very well.
Guaranteed work. We were talking about job security earlier.
He's
You want
got it.
job security? Become a plumber or electrician. Job security, right there, period. It's the only industry I know. I correct myself. I told you before that no one has any job security with anything. You want job security or the highest probability of it? Plumbers, electricians, carpenters.
There you go.
Yep.
So there's the short-term rental boom. You know about this, obviously. Increasing amount of institutional
Did you just
capital.
say that I know about this, obviously?
Yeah, I mean, isn't that true?
The short-term, all right, please, short-term rental boom.
Yeah.
What about it?
I was just going to say that institutional capital, we've talked about before about that going into single-family homes, but it's
Yeah.
also going into
They're gobbling up everything.
Yeah, these short-term rentals.
Yep.
I know that for you, apartment buildings have always been the priority, but has pandemic maybe shifted your view? Maybe like, oh, maybe I should get more into short-term rentals. What are your thoughts on that?
So, yeah, I learned a lot about the short-term rental business over the past few years and saw what was happening very early on in the pandemic with short-term. Very low barrier, zero barrier to entry, except for local rules and regulations that may or may not allow you to do short-term rentals. So in my markets, George, I've tried to do it, but I'm regulated where I am. So most of my markets, I can't take a unit or 2 or 5 from an apartment building and convert it to short-term product and get involved with VRBO or Airbnb because there's ordinances in my cities that prevent me from doing that. But for those of you who are in towns and cities where there aren't ordinances preventing short-term rentals and vacation rentals, you should absolutely look into it. There's a lot of people who are experts on it. So seek them out. You can do Google searches for short-term rental masterminds and experts, and there's lots of coaches and courses out there. Some are really dead on and great, and a lot of them suck and don't have experience. So find the ones that are dead on and great. I have a few in mind that I know personally. So if you want, DM me and I'll tell you who they are. I wish I could get more into short-term rentals, but I'm late to that party now. And the reason I'm late is because 2.5 years ago, when I was starting to do that, I realized that my markets are regulated against it. So I'll leave that for all you guys and for everybody else. And I'm happy with my multifamily and my opportunistic stuff. But
yeah, just like everything else, its supply is super low with that as well.
It is, and it's competition to the hotels.
Yeah.
But it's a different product than the hotels. I mean, you get all sorts of parking. You get a full kitchen. You get like a house. That's not what hotels are, unless it's like some short stay thing that they've converted to like an Airbnb. You get a different product. It's a different experience, and it's a great supplement to the marketplace. So yeah, it competes with the hotels, but it's also a different product than the hotels. Yeah. And so perhaps the hotels now flourish even more because they offer niche hotel room products, and Airbnb and VRBO is more likely to give you like a great house or condo experience.
And I think the stats bear that out. You see a lot of, polls being done where most of the stays for short-term rentals are like a month. It is longer, even though it's short-term, it's still longer than what a lot of times you do with a hotel.
Yep.
And with hotels, you have the concierge service. There's a lot of like amenity qualities to a hotel that you don't get with a short-term rental.
True.
So it's, like you said, it's different. Disney development. You hear about this?
Disney development, like they're building another theme park?
No. That like we talked about how Amazon was potentially getting into multifamily. That was like
they're not potentially.
Last
they
year.
are.
Right? No, they are. But last year we were talking about them getting into it. Now Walt Disney Company plans to get into residential development. Do you see this as a sign of things to come?
Completely, right, and not shocking to me at all. I did hear that Disney was getting into multifamily. Why? Because they're in business. They've got a lot of capital. They need housing for employees and staff to operate their parks, to make movies, and the truth is that where they're located in Florida, in California, there's housing shortages. Prices are very, very high, and if they are going to keep employees nearby, they have to have a housing solution. Employees need to have a housing solution. So same thing with Amazon. Yes, these companies are going to deploy capital into providing housing. You're going to see it tied more and more to employment, it's going to be a feature of a company. So when you're looking for a place to work, one of the boxes you're going to want to check off is what are the housing options? Like going to a university, what are the dorm options? Am I living on campus or off campus?
That's now going to be part of the conversation in today's world of employment. You're not just going to be looking for a company for its job and its culture, but for its housing offerings. So yes, I completely see this as a trend, and it's not just going to be Amazon and Disney. It's going to be everybody. It's going to be the manufacturers. Every large company in our country is going to have to come up with a housing solution to keep staffing and employees nearby and accessible so that they have people to work at the companies, for sure. And it doesn't surprise me at all. The ones with the largest amounts of capital are going to go first. You're going to see this happen with Apple Computer and Microsoft and Dell and the tech companies. And we're going to see it with Google, I'm sure, mark my words. Yeah, housing is a big problem. Everyone's jumping in. The states are jumping in. We just talked about New York and California. The companies are jumping in. It's been the investors. It's been the private investment community who's been the only solution for housing for forever. But now everybody else is joining the conversation. It's exciting as long as the towns and cities and states don't get it wrong with the legislations and the regulations.
Yeah, well, I won't hold my breath for that. Yeah. Sam Zell's equity firms recently invested $147 million in manufactured homes.
I heard that too.
Yeah. Do you think the housing industry is headed into more of a prefab movement?
Completely.
Yeah.
We've talked about here on this podcast 3D printing. We've talked about prefab before. We've talked about how there's so much money chasing whatever yield it can find. Well, the biggest yield is opportunities in the housing markets and providing solutions for the shortages of housing and the unaffordability of housing. So there's so many technologies that are coming out. You're seeing technologies from Europe, from Australia, from South Africa. I see 1 or 2 deals a month, George. 3D printing, factories that make prefab, insulated panels, pre-assembled foundations that get delivered on site, and they go up in two days instead of 2 or 3 weeks for traditional foundations. There's all sorts of technologies that are now coming out of the woodwork. They're getting investment, and they're coming to market more quickly than they ever have before. It's a race, and the reason it's a race is because Disney and Amazon and California, New York, and all the states and all the companies have to provide housing. We need housing. So we can't legislate our way to housing. We have to build. If you build faster and less expensively, you can build more housing. So absolutely, this is what we're going to see more of. And it's not just Sam Zell that made these investments. People are making investments every second of every day into all of these technologies. I mean, if you Google it, you'll find articles upon articles and startups and venture funds looking to be paired with startups and entrepreneurs that have technologies and patents that want to come to market. There's people that want to build very capital-intensive factories, and there's other that want to license their technology and let other people make the capital investment, and while the owners of the technology and patents just sit back and earn royalties. There's all sorts of different ways to get to market and to capitalize your idea and grow your business. It's all shaken out right now for the next few years because all of these technologies are unproven. Some of them are going to go away. Most of them are going to go away. But the ones that survive are going to be the solution for the future. We're going to be able to build more housing faster and less expensively. Look, we all know how expensive lumber and materials and labor and electricians and plumbers. There we go again with electricians and plumbers. We all know how expensive that's gotten
only just going
over
up
the past 2 years and year and a half in particular. If we can build a solution that's cheaper and faster, better, stronger than the traditional methods, you're going to see a lot more of it, for damn sure.
Bionic man.
Yeah, I wish I was good at picking those guys. I see a lot of these deals, and I've invested in a couple. Mm-hmm. There's so many. I mean, the landscape is very crowded. The ones I invested in were early on, and then all of a sudden I started to see like dozens and dozens and dozens scores.
That's crazy.
More.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit, maybe I should have waited and picked my winners over a longer period of time, which I can still do. But there's a big landscape, and the whole industry is developing right now.
Yeah, how much with that, or just with investing in general, how much of your success do you feel like is getting on the ground floor versus waiting it out and seeing who's
It's a combination of both.
A combination of both. Yeah,
it's strategy and tactics. If I feel that there's a large barrier to entry for other people to come in and that the opportunity in front of me is well poised to be a first mover or to capture a large percentage of market share quickly, perhaps investment dollars flow there. If I feel that there's a low barrier to entry and that everyone in the world has patents and technologies and solutions for housing in this case, maybe I'll wait it out. I made some bets a couple of years ago,
and maybe I'll make a few more now, but I think it's going to be a needle advancing wave in our society. I mean, figuring out the housing problem is a big, big deal. Trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars is at stake. Of course, people need housing. It's going to be a big opportunity for businesses. So if you're looking for an industry or business to get into, if you can solve housing problems,
All comes back to what are you going to do about it?
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. All right. Well, I have one Zest Quest for you, actually.
Okay. Really wimpy this year. You had 2 for me last year. You're like maybe 1 occasionally.
Yeah.
now?
Well, there've been a lot of hard hitting topics, so I didn't want to take away from that.
Hard
But,
hitting.
Yeah.
If you do say so yourself.
I do say so myself.
After I just called it wimpy.
Yeah.
What do you got?
The week's been difficult. You know, the news cycle's been rough.
This week has been a fucking bummer.
Yeah. What's been something that's given you hope recently, or what's something that you seek out for hope?
I'm a generally positive guy and a hopeful guy. I'm not really negative or distraught or depressed or, despite what's happening in the Ukraine, despite what's happening in our country, and despite what's happening around the world with pandemics and the divisiveness and the politics and the anger and the non-unity and all of that stuff. It all sucks, but I'm generally hopeful about so much. So, I index towards my family and my friends. That always makes me feel even more positive and hopeful.
Yeah.
I see the world changing so much right now, very fast and in large ways and in vast definitions. Human behaviors don't change unless there's black swan events that make them change.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what we're living through right now. I mean, we've never seen this stuff.
Yeah.
And in 5 years and in 6 years and in 10 years, the world is going to be completely different. Every aspect of your life, shopping, cars, education, housing, everything's going to be not just a little bit different, a lot different.
Radical.
That's really hopeful for me. I mean, I think that's really positive.
Yeah.
Because the way things are now are problems. So a lot of solutions are coming our way. I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, this too shall pass. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much, Peter, and I'll see you over at Q&A.
You look great today, George.
Thank you so much. I
Your
appreciate
beard
it.
is nice and trim.
Yeah, you're trying to get it neat.
You mentioned something to me about St. Patrick's Day and the correlation to your beard. I'm not really sure what that is.
Yeah.
Who out there thinks that George looks like a leprechaun? George, put up a picture of you looking like a leprechaun.
I will. I have my green shirt, everything.
Like maybe like your head on a little leprechaun body?
I can do that.
Can you do that?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's funny. When I was working in the restaurant, I used to, and the night was slow, I would go up to tables with an Irish accent, and we would do, a busboy and I would go up.
Can I hear a little bit of that right now?
I'd say, "Good evening, guys. My name's George. I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with any still, sparkling, or iced water?" And then I'd have this whole backstory as well that I was from County Cork and that I gone to Manhattan for a while because I was doing a university there. But then I got a girlfriend, she was down in New Jersey, and so I tried to stay as long as possible. So that's why I started working in restaurants, and I've been here ever since. And that was my thing.
There you have it, George the Leprechaun, everybody. Never ceases to amaze.
Yeah.
George the gourmet mustard eating leprechaun.
Yeah, that's a commercial I'd like to say. Cool. All right, well, thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Peter, I got a question for you.
George, give me the questions, man. That's why we're here.
This one's
Wait,
by-
give me the name.
Of course, very important.
Yeah.
Ed Nelson.
Ed. Ed
I
Nelson.
feel like that's a very standard name, actually. For
Ed Nelson.
Yeah, that's
Damn.
Yeah, very middle America.
Yeah.
All right. So Ed says, "Is there such a thing as being too driven? My boss recently told me that I need to connect more effectively with my coworkers, but if I get my job done efficiently, shouldn't that be enough? I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to get after my goals."
There's not such a thing as being too driven, but there is such a thing as being a dick. So if you're being abrasive or not personable or not warm or not approachable while you're being driven, you may want to try and smooth out some of those bumps and sharp points, but no, man, drive away. The more driven, the better, Ed. I mean, come on, Ed. What are we talking about, man? Ed. I don't know, where do we know where Ed's from? You said Middle America, but we don't.
I just based that
Ed,
on the name.
I'm going to guess that you are from Middle America, because not only does your name Ed Nelson tell me that, but George thinks and I think that you're from Middle America, because your question is like, I don't know, you probably don't have an exposure to New York or LA or Chicago or some like major market urban work environment where like people are abrasive and dicky all the time while they're being driven, that's okay. But like, it's new to you, so I'm thinking maybe like you're from Kansas or something, or Mississippi, Sheboygan, Wisconsin, my favorite go-tos. Can you put up Sheboygan, Wisconsin, George?
I would love to.
Because I think Ed's from Sheboygan.
Yeah.
Ed, look, you can be driven, buddy, but just don't be a jerk, and don't bum out on people if they're not like on the same track as you are. Just, yeah, get your work done and produce and perform, deliver great results. Do it with a smile, be approachable, do it with a personality, you know, don't be like dry and douchey about it. And I think that you're gonna find that you get along with people much better, and you're gonna be retained longer and employed longer and contracted for longer and paid more and all that stuff. So no, you can't be too driven, just you also can't be too nice about it.
Yeah, it's that fine line. Like, I mean, you always say like real estate is a people business, and so like relationship is key. But obviously, you know,
I'll tell you
get
what.
off your stuff.
Real estate's a people business, but business is a people business.
Yeah.
If you want to be in business, you got to know how to deal with people, be relatable, be charming and suave and debonair. No, really, look, you got to know how to do that stuff. You got to have relationships, be relatable, learn how to develop that aggressiveness, but just, you know, be a nice guy about it, man.
Yeah, I love it. All right, cool. Thanks so much, Peter. I'll see you
Ed,
next time.
thanks, Ed.
Thank you,
See you
Ed.
in New York.